Okay, we are recording. My name is Anthony Pachek. I'm here with my catch wrestling coach, John Strickland. The topic tonight is going to be the bottom position, aka referee's position, aka all fours position, aka turtle position if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, but also sort of all of its extensions and not just the position itself, but that as a complete system of playing bottom position, you know, almost as an alternative to the guard position. Um, just kind of set the context here for what we're going to be talking about tonight. We are not talking about grappling in a gi. We are not talking its usage in mixed martial arts. We're not talking about self-defense. We are solely talking about no gi, sports submission grappling, and catch wrestling. And I feel like my coach John is sort of uniquely qualified to speak on this. When I first sort of was looking for some kind of catch wrestling program to get into, I was looking at a few. I eventually settled on John, and I didn't really know much about his style. And after working with him and sort of seeing his stuff, I came to find out that his style is a very mat wrestling heavy style. And which sort of took me by surprise. Um, I didn't really expect that coming from a wrestling system. But as the old adage goes, bulls get killed on the ground. That's sort of the motto that he tends to live by when he wrestles. So, Coach, thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk about this with me.
Sure, man.
Okay, all right. So, let's kind of get into it here. This is a huge topic. So it's kind of hard for me to decide where to exactly start with this. This is one of those things that's sort of like when you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the way I like to think about it. So if you're a just sort of modern grappling enthusiast, watching this, maybe do some jujitsu, maybe do some no-gi grappling. What we're talking about tonight is the turtle position. And in our sport of catch wrestling, you can win the match by or by submission. So in our sport of catch wrestling, uh, our primary bottom position is going to the all fours position. This is counter to jiu-jitsu, where you get taken down, you go to your back, you go to some kind of guard-based position where you're facing your opponent. We face the mat and we face away from our opponents, our backs off of the mat to avoid the pin. Um, what my coach John here likes to make the case for is the validity of this position, not only within the realm of catch wrestling, where you can lose by pinfall, but also in the realm of submission grappling, at your average jiu-jitsu tournament, where you cannot lose by pinfall. This is sort of considered sort of like a cardinal sin, going to turtle and playing turtle position instead of guard is sort of considered one of those things you see that's a cardinal sin. You don't do it. Turtle position is used primarily as a means to get back to the guard position. They have a couple reversals from there. They have a couple submissions from there. But it's primarily a transitionary position that they use to get back to guard. So I guess my first question for you, John, would be, what do you think the biggest thing or the things people miss when they play all fours position, that makes them sort of not see the merit in it and makes them kind of poo-poo it and cast it off the side? What do you think are the main ingredients they're missing here that they need to learn?
Well, I think one thing is just understanding that position. You know, having your hips under you, staying tight, keeping your elbows in. Technically, the majority of the time, I don't want my head on the mat. That's usually a no-no in wrestling. Um, Sometimes it's okay when we're talking about submission, and it's okay sometimes when we're hunting certain holds or reversals. But normally you want to have those common strong basics from what I would refer to as like a rep position, um, that a lot of people call the turtle. I think one of the big things too is that people tend to, when you go back to, let's say 20, 25, 30 years ago, the common argument was you'll get choked. They'll jump on your back and choke you. And, and I'll never forget when I first started training with my coach, I had been doing jiu-jitsu for a while, and I went into the first practice and I jumped on 2 or 3 backs immediately. And I actually kind of thought like, to myself, like, yes, you're going to let me choke you. This is awesome. I mean, this is easy. You're letting me have your back. And then I got in there and I couldn't do crap with anyone. I couldn't choke them. I was, it was quite a learning experience and a hard learning curve at first for me. And that was the one big thing. And the one thing I like about it too is if I'm in a situation and I'm just getting destroyed, I can always just stand up and like run away, you know, even if it was like in a submission tournament and like I needed to run up to the stands to grab some popcorn. I mean, I can get up to my feet, man, because I don't like the idea of, I like to be in control of my own body and control of where I go on the mat, not somebody else kind of controlling that for me is a big factor for me. And I think like anything, you know, it might be a little different at first for a newcomer or somebody who's not used to it. Um, Before I did BJJ, I had wrestled, and that was a little bit of a transition for me. Like, okay, you're okay, you're safe right here on your back, that kind of thing. And then I think that's the thing is that whatever it is, it takes development. You can't just go, yeah, I can do this. This is going to be okay. I'll drop down here and I'll be fine. If, in my opinion, if you can't defend a choke from all fours and armbar, get broken down, getting legs thrown in on you, getting out of those things, then you probably should avoid being in that position. Um, and there's even a part of me that enjoys, as a leg rider, I enjoy people throwing in legs. A lot of times I'll bait them to throw in legs just to hit a reversal, so.
That's a really great point. I'm gonna get into that too. I'm gonna get into that here in a second. Just wanted to clarify a couple things for our listeners here, just for the sake of ease on John's part. Throughout this conversation, we'll just refer to the position as ref's position. That's his sort of vocab that he uses most often to refer to the position. So if you hear the term ref's position, just know that we're talking about the turtle position. Just to clarify another thing too, just go to college, folk style wrestling background. And he has a catch wrestling lineage that traces back to Farmer Burns. It goes him, his coach, Billy Wicks' coach, Henry Colin, and then Colin's coach, the legendary Martin Farmer Burns. And if you don't know who Farmer Burns is, I definitely recommend Googling him and just do some research on him. He's sort of a legendary figure within the realm of American catch-as-catch-can wrestling. So yeah, just wanted to clarify those two things. And going back to your point, Coach, about throwing the legs in, this is a great point that you've really kind of tipped me off on when it comes to ref's position. Before I got with you, I had already been studying the turtle position. I'd already been studying catch wrestling on my own, and I knew that in catch wrestling, you had to use the ref's position. And so I'd already been, tooling around with, just trying to solely play that without playing guard ball, just to see if it was possible. And it very much was. There's plenty of escapes from there, plenty of reversals from there, and a couple submissions from there as well. I was, though, defending the hooks coming in like my life depended on it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing a lot of times. But since being with you, I've really realized that, especially if someone on top of you is a bigger wrestler than you or a better wrestler than you or both, a lot of times, escaping or reversing or submitting just from the regular rest position without hooks can be rather difficult. And so a lot of times, if the guy on top is trying to put a leg hook in, and I'm stuck down there, I'll off to it now. Again, this is even a bigger cardinal sin in the world of jiu-jitsu and modern submission grappling than being a turtle for extended periods of time. Um, Letting the opponent put hooks in is just it's easy on playing turtle. I guess I shouldn't say it's easy. I can do it if I have enough time with that person. I can sell them on it and show them on it. But goddamn, trying to sell most grapplers nowadays on letting someone put hooks in on you is just man. I honestly, it's very difficult. But I have found there is a lot of validity to what you're saying. Part of it is just letting them put hooks in and getting comfortable there. Getting comfortable surviving, not freaking out, not thinking that it's the end of the world. You know, and realizing the pros and cons of the sort of bad positions you can be in. If someone's on your back like that, you know, a lot of times they're tilted off to the side. They don't have gravitational advantage on you. They just have that angular advantage on you. Where someone's in a crossbody side control or a mount position, they have gravitational advantage on you, which will wear on you over time. So I think a lot of modern grappling practitioners see position as back control, or what back wrestling we would call it, like being the highest on the positional hierarchy, and then below that being cross sides and mounts. But for me, just kind of as an all-around grappler, I just see kind of the pros and cons there. For me, it's it's not so much that back control is the highest on the level. It's just sort of an apples and oranges thing. And the more time that I put in there, and I know how to counterattack it, the more it's dropping on my positional hierarchy for me. I guess my next question would be, my first question was, what do you think we're missing as far as the field position goes? What do you think people are missing as far as having someone on their back goes, and being able to escape and reverse and maybe even submit from there?
Well, I think being in the position more than anything. I'm a big believer in reps and doing something just until it just becomes so damn redundant. You're even, as I tell guys, you have to love it, in my opinion, because you're going to have to do it so damn much. It's going to become very boring and taxing, and you're going to get submitted. You're going to get flattened. You're going to get destroyed. And that should happen in the early days. And to back up a little bit on what you said about this, was brought to me by a friend years ago who actually wrestled at West Virginia, University of West Virginia, and got into jiu-jitsu, lives here in South Carolina. And he said to me one day, he goes, "What other guy's bigger than you can out wrestle you?" And he's on your back, stays behind you. And my response was, "What other guy that you're doing jiu-jitsu against is better in the guard than you? What if he holds you in the position that you choose besides ref?" It's irrelevant, really. Wherever you're at, you have to win the situation. So whether it was on our feet, whether it was in guard, whether it was in a half guard, or some of the new things, the new movements you see within the BJJ community, when they're doing a lot more open guard, a lot more sitting up, that kind of stuff. So you have to, in my opinion, you have to be prepared for the situation. Whatever you're going to bring offensively, whatever is your game, it needs to be your game. You have to be able to incorporate that game, though, when you are on the mat. So it's about not only understanding the move, but drilling the move until you know the move extremely well. Where, I have guys all the time saying to me, like, they'll search for a reversal on bottom that we call a side roll. A lot of amateur wrestlers refer to it as a fat man roll. It's similar to, it can lead off into a Peterson roll and a few other things like that. And they'll say to me, "Coach, the guy dropped his hips, or he did this, or he did that, and I couldn't roll him." And my response is then you need to get better at it. And I can almost always go and say, let you get down, let me see what happened, show me what you're talking about. And I can immediately see what the problem was. Like, you have to be able to, when I was learning to do that, it was like, okay, I can hit this reversal. And then it was brought to me, can you hit it when you're flat, when you're bellied out? No. Well, then you're terrible. Which he didn't say you were terrible, but he's like, you got to learn it from there because that could happen. And then understanding, I think the big thing is understanding you don't need to panic. The same way, to me, there's a lot of, not just with submission holds, but I think a lot of wrestlers who go into catch wrestling confuse it with the sense of, they go, well, it's similar to jiu-jitsu. Like, we have submission holds, but they kind of want to wrestle with that folk style mindset, like urgency. Like, I've got 2 minutes, I got 3 minutes to go score many points or go get this pin. And that's not how catch was about. I mean, even when you look at the early days of amateur wrestling in the NCAA in the early 20th century, their matches were 20 or 30-minute time limits, no points, and basically whoever riding time was crucial because whoever was basically dominant on top won. If there wasn't a pin, for example. So I don't think because you're in ref position that you're in a dominant situation. I think you're in a situation that you better know what you're doing from there. I would always prefer to be riding my opponent than being rid. But if let's say a guy throws in legs on me, and the other thing, let me say this real quick. I would never encourage a wrestler to let somebody throw legs in on them or a grappler unless that they were really good at dealing with that. And I felt like they were probably better at countering and defending that and attacking that than the person throwing legs is from an offensive, point of view from them. So, for example, the guy throws in legs. If he throws in legs, if he beats me and gets past my elbows, gets in, whatever, gets me extended, gets legs in, when I start to get to my counter offense, I don't want him to, flat me. I don't want him to swing it across body and grab my far ankle or jump over into a guillotine. Immediately I want to take control offensively and set him out onto his hip. I want to control that situation as soon as he throws legs in. I'm going offensive. Why it might look like a defensive situation to a lot of people, and I like to use the words. I don't like defense. I like offense and counter offense. So to me, it's just like if somebody's going to shoot a double on you or a single leg, they're going to take you down. You know that they've gotten past all your basic points that you've been taught since a kid wrestling. They've gotten past your head, they got past your hands. They're coming in. You've got past your block. Now they're getting past your sprawl. They're going to get you. They got your leg. You're going over. At that point in time, it's your choice of where you land. So if I'm going to get taken down, it's going to at least be on my terms where I want to fight from. Like if you're going to you hit a double on me, get my legs, are you going to sit me on my butt and split me? I don't want you to split me. I'm going to try to get off to the side. So going back to this position real quick, I think that's one of the things that guys have to understand is that you got to understand the things that can happen to you on bottom in that situation, and you have to. I think you're better to have an extremely solid defense and one escape than you are to have a bunch of escapes and not be able to defend crap from that position, because I think that's how you get yourself choked. We saw, you can see a lot of in the early or late 90s and early 2000s, saw a lot of competitors go into that situation and get rear naked choked. And it was almost like they'd get caught in a choke, and then they would try some ridiculous, leg lock to get out. And it's like, no, it's on. You're pretty done. I mean, you have to get out of the hold. Excuse me. And obviously, the first thing would have been not get caught in the hold. And the more I started seeing things like that too, I'd watch guys going, man, it's almost like he doesn't understand he's about to be choked right here, And this is why always in my practices, I'm always on my guys about knowing where their head and neck are, keeping that very well protected, because in that position, people are going to try to tear your head off whether they're a wrestler cross facing or whether they're a jiu-jitsu guy trying to choke you. It's always going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially nowadays, everyone's looking for that rear naked choke, and if you're going against a catch wrestler, he's looking for the neck crank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely protecting the neck and the head is just paramount. Coach, so much good stuff he brought up there. I honestly, it's I want to make it clear for our listeners that what we're talking about here, you kind of have to see the entire tapestry of what we're talking about to really get it. We're not talking about one specific position or one specific transition or one specific submission here. It's really in order to make what we're talking about work, everything has to really come together. And I like we putting in the time there, and you have to put in the time, and you have to get smashed, you have to fail a bunch in order to make it work. And one way I could kind of communicate or kind of relate this to any people out there listening who do jiu-jitsu is, in the world of jiu-jitsu, getting your guard up, getting your guard retention, getting your guard, defense, getting your guard, just getting your guard up and rolling, is a very difficult thing. It's actually, a lot of people consider it the most difficult thing to sort of get up and rolling in jiu-jitsu is sort of understand how to play the and just how to retain, and if you lose it, how to get it back. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very time consuming thing to do. But once you sort of see it and you get your skills up, you're kind of up and rolling, and you can work off of that. What John is talking about as far as ref position goes is the same thing. In jiu-jitsu, when you try to play guard the first time, you're going to get passed a bunch, and then you're going to get submitted. When you're playing refs, a lot of times, it's going to depend on kind of like which stylist you're going against. If you're going against, more wrestler types, well, you're going to get broken down. You're going to get turned over. You're going to get held there. If you're going against a catch wrestler, you're going to get submitted. If you're going against a jiu-jitsu guy, he's probably going to take your back a bunch and choke you a bunch. And so it's important to realize that what we're talking about here is another macro system of bottom positioning. It's very important. This isn't a different, an extension of what you already do in jiu-jitsu. It's entirely set alternative way of playing the bottom position, and you've got to treat it as such in your mind when you go into learning it first. And you just got to think back to when let's say you're a blue belt or purple belt now, and you learned how to play guard a couple of years ago. It's old hat to you now, but you got to think back to when you're a white belt, in your first couple of days coming in, getting smashed, getting stacked, getting passed, and then getting submitted. You got to have that same white belt beginner mentality when you're beginning to do this. One of my main training partners, Josh, we've recently begun sort of working on this again, sort of for kind of a weird reason. He's got some back issues going on, and from kind of various things throughout life, not necessarily just jiu-jitsu, but he wanted to learn how to play the refs because it would take the pressure off his back. And that was actually one of the first things I kind of noticed when I started playing. It was like, man, I don't have to like get stacked up on the back of my neck anymore, when I'm playing bottom position, especially against pressure passers or stacked passers. They're coming in, and you're trying to retain guard, and your body weight is getting stacked up on the back of your neck. And man, you only get one neck in life. They're coming out with better stuff for your neck, but man, playing guard is tough on your upper back and your lower back too. And so he came to me wanting to learn it because of that. And after the first couple sessions, I'd give him some stuff to do. Okay, go out, try this when you roll. Come back next week, we'll learn some more stuff. And he some of the first things that he some of the first kind of bits of information that he relayed to me was, man, it sucks because I'm getting smashed and I'm getting beaten by lesser grapplers than me, and it's tough. It's tough on your sort of ego when that happens, especially if you're already a good grappler in your own right. Um, that's a tough thing to do because you are sort of starting over at square one. But I reminded him that I was like, hey, remember back when you just started jiu-jitsu, how was your guard? He's like, it was non-existent. Guys, I would try to do it and then they would just immediately pass and then submit me. I was like, you got to think about it like that, and he actually he saw me bring mine up. When I first started trying to play the referee's position, he was taking my back a lot. He was choking me a lot, but over time I kept getting better and kept getting better and kept getting better at it. And now he's like, now I can't do shit to you, so I think those points you brought up, very relevant. Just very on point there. And people have to understand that if you're going to make a go at this, you've got to be patient with it. You gotta be patient. You gotta be persistent with it. Sort of moving on here. The next thing I kind of wanted to get into was sort of all the kind of extensions of the referee's position. And these things would be like the sit-out position, going up into a tripod, the standing rear body lock position, being bellied out, or at least broken down, on your shoulder and your hip. These are all what you might consider like extensions of the referee's position. And a way that I like to kind of communicate that to my jiu-jitsu friends is, these sort of various these variations of the referee's position are kind of like our various kind of guards. Like in jiu-jitsu, you've got closed guard, you've got open guard, you've got half guard, you've got butterfly guard, you've got a ton of different guards. When it comes to the referee's position, there's variation in this stuff too. It's not just us balled up, in a tight turtle position, not doing anything. If you see somebody doing that all the time, they probably don't have a very good referee's position. I'll just say that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it comes to like sit out, tripod position. Go ahead and go look those positions up on YouTube or Google and just kind of see what I'm talking about. So I guess my question for you, Coach, would be sort of like what sort of like and this is kind of a weird question for you because as a catch wrestler, everything is you kind of see everything as one. So I'm kind of breaking stuff down and sort of dividing stuff in a way that you don't necessarily think about it. But I'm just sort of kind of doing it for the sake of our jiu-jitsu friends. You've got your regular referee's position. What sort of like extensions of the referee's position do you find yourself like using most often, would you say? Or is that even a valid question to ask you?
Well, no, I think it is. I think one of the things is too that I wanted to say real quick is that, and especially anybody that's got a amateur wrestling background, real quick. I think one of the things is that it's the hardest thing for wrestlers to understand in the referee position going from folk style to catch is the word stalling doesn't exist in catch wrestling.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my coach. I'd say something like, "Oh, he's stalling," and he'd say, "That's up to you to change that. If you don't want him grabbing a leg and hanging on, then do something about it, or sit here and cry to me." He goes or whine to me about it because I'm not going to do anything about it for you. And I'm like, damn, So it does. I mean, there is a thing where somebody's running and avoid a match, but even then, it's like track him down. I mean, if you want Floyd Mayweather to stand in front of you and bang, go make him bang, put him up in the corner. I mean, that's a little hard. But anyway, good to the point here. I would say like positions where, I have one foot posted up, like a knee slide situation.
This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I don't really have a name for that as of yet. So yeah, you can be knee sliding there, tripod situation where I'm building back up there, short sit to being on one hip. There was a part that one night at a friend's house who Had trained with Pops for a while too. Pops was coming down to his house for a while, and we were working out in their basement. And he taught us a thing called the Charlie Carr side ride. And basically, it's Charlie Carr is an old athletic show, tough wrestler from back in that era. Basically, it's using like outside grapes, hitting grape, like throwing. So you're in ref, you go to hit a switch or something. A guy kind of stuffs you or blocks you. You basically hook his leg, similar to a guard, like a scissor, except you're in ref playing it the other direction. And you're battling for an arm to get a reversal, escape, or submission. So you have that situation going on. Obviously, belly down is somewhere that a lot of guys don't like going. Oh, I know how to get off my belly, and I'm like, okay, bring this guy over here. Now you get down on him. Let me see him get up. No, I can't. Well, then you can't get off your belly because you're gonna have to be able to do those things, and you can't go. Well, that guy's too good. I mean, if that's the case, there's always going to be somebody really great. But if you don't, I think personally that you should anything you're training, whether it was even jujitsu or wrestling or anything, you should try to train with the expectation of facing the best on the damn planet. Don't limit yourself going, I can get out on 50% or 60 or 70% of people. No, man, it's got to be higher than that. You got to have that kind of, going from, I don't know, me personally, it doesn't matter who it was. If I had to competitively roll with somebody right now, I would be much better off if they got top position and control. I'd be much better off battling for my ref than I would a guard. It could be against it could be anyone from the States, Brazil, anywhere. I would be much better off in referee than I would in a guard position. Um, you know, I can't speak for other people, just myself, obviously. But like we talked about a second ago, it's where you're better at, it's where you're strong at, where what you've trained at, where you're good at. Where you can get to your offense and a lot of your stuff. I think one of the things too on bottom is not just the tripod, knee slide, getting into um, one of the other things too is build a trap, um, build a hand fight on bottom is so important. And I think it's a small area of the game. People are like, oh, I can get out of hands, but you know, if you can't get out of hands or if you can't attack hands when you're on bottom, you're going to get yourself into some trouble. Because I don't care what escape or reversal you're trying to hit. If somebody's got they got double hooks on you, or a 3-quarter and out hat, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're ripping you back or slamming you around. If you can't battle their hands, they're gonna control it. So you have to be able to get hand control on guys, and I would say that's probably another position or a situation there where when I'm trapping a hand, obviously, I don't think it would come to a surprise to anyone listening that I'm thinking submission. I'm also thinking reversal. Um, so the other thing is head down. Like we said earlier, that's going to be brief to go to my tripod. I have a tripod up on it. If I'm Granbying across, I guess that could possibly touch there. Um, if I'm fishing for a toe hold or wrist lock, uh, or trying to roll up into a heel hook or something like that, But uh, usually, yeah, what you said a minute ago about somebody keeping their head down, I get on the guys about that. If they're keeping their head down just to keep it down, and what they'll do is they'll get down and they'll kind of hide because they're afraid to get choked. And I'm like, dude, get your head up. The jiu-jitsu guys I've been around, like my one instructor, Jacare, he could choke you with your heads down or up. So they're like, oh, if I stick my head up, he's going to choke me. I'm like, if you stick your head down, he's going to choke you. If you can't, how do you escape? How do you go forward? How do you hit a reversal? How do you do anything if you're looking at the damn mat and your head's on the mat? I mean, you can't even ever stand back up again without taking your head off the mat unless you walk around with your butt in the air, on a tripod for the rest of your life. You got to get your head up, And of course, like we said a minute ago, there comes the concern of getting people cross facing you, peeling your head off, slapping in rear naked chokes, Um, you know, um, yeah, they're gonna that I suspect, it's like always somebody's like, oh, you could, they could go for this. Oh, I expect them to go for that. I mean, that's how when you train. Like if I was to walk up to most good, or jujitsu practitioners who've been trained for a while, I'm just like, Oh, so if you go in the guard, the person can reach down, pick you up, and slam you. Of course they prepared for that. Of course they've thought about that scenario and drilled for it. It's kind of the Captain Obvious, and I think I think everybody, I think it's insulting to listeners to say like, oh, yeah, you didn't know they could choke you. Like, of course they knew that. Uh, so, but yeah, I don't, but you're not going to go anywhere, you know, with your head down. Just like I think if you're in guard, you don't use your hands. It's probably going to be pretty difficult as well. Um, you know, if you don't have any hands, that's a whole different story. And you can develop your game. I mean, I really, I used to have a friend, man, who did karate, didn't have any arms. I'm serious. Didn't have either arm, but man, obviously he was a great kicker. He had to be. It was his only option really, and um, yeah, he was not fun to spar because yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. It's like, damn, he's kicking me in the head at will, and I can't even hit him. He doesn't even have a defense. I'm throwing jabs at him. He's just slipping them. I'm like, God, I feel like a moron out here. But yeah, so the position wise are those. The big thing, like I always talk about on bottom, is it's a real pet peeve of mine. Guys get extended, and then they'll get broken down, or they'll you have to understand that kind of a little bit of a. I don't think you ever should focus on somebody else's game so much, where you don't come into a fight bringing your game or a match or whatever you're going to call it, bringing your game. But you do need to know your opponent a little bit. Like you need to have some concept of what a jiu-jitsu practitioner is thinking, at least in the terms of like, you know, he might put me in some choke I've never heard of, but in order to choke me, he's got to cut off both carotids. I mean, you know, unless he's just like, I mean, I guess there's this strange moments. I'm not going to say it's an absolute, but most often. And then, you know, he might have some new way to get into an armbar. I'm not worried about that as much as do I remember how I always defend my elbow because that's when an armbar is going to attack is my elbow. All I got to do is protect my damn elbow. I just can't let it lock out. I don't care the position or the angle it comes from. I just got to know to defend it, and then I'll just keep wrestling. Wrestle from there. Um, and understanding that, and really understanding it where put me in an armbar here, put me in an armbar here, go for this, go for this. Let me see, you know, and a lot of it was the mechanics, the things I was taught. I didn't have to really like when I was out in Los Angeles last time. There were a lot of jiu-jitsu guys out there saying, "How would you deal with this situation?" And there were situations I'd never been in, and basically I was able to respond to though immediately. Like so they would put me in some do something unique from the bottom, and then that's we say go, and then I'd snatch toe hold or what they would refer to as pass, and like you know uh, wrestle. I would just say wrestle from there, and then I just understand that like, look, I know you're trying to choke me, put me on my back, submit my arm. If you can submit, and like however you defend your left arm works the same as your right arm. And your left leg is like your right leg. So when you think about it, there's only three major unless we're talking small joint manipulation, a leg, an arm, and a head, which I'll include the neck there. There's three things that you got to worry about getting submitted. And you start thinking about that, and you say, how do I? Again, I don't care how they get to them. I care how I don't let them get it. I don't tap to it. How do I block it? How do I maneuver? How do I get out of it? Those kind of things. So those are the things you have to have on bottom, and plus a little bit further than like that with what and then catch is that we have a pinfall, so you have to make sure that somebody doesn't turn you. You get turned to your back. I mean, you don't have to worry about like we're not again if you get hit with a tilt, you're not going to give up near fall points or anything like that, or your back exposed. And I certainly don't like the touch falls of freestyle, which I want to go into that rant, but. Uh, yeah, I have to be aware that I don't want to get put on my blades and I don't want to get submitted. And so I think one of the things that we tend to think of as Americans traditionally growing up in the school system of wrestling, and I'm sure this was this way for you as a kid, is that the majority of these practices, you're on your feet, you're on your feet, you're on your feet. You know, I'm not saying you're on the mat a lot, but you're on your feet for a lot. And I think the difference is that, you said at the beginning of this is that we're on the mat 97%, 95% of the time in practice. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, you're a wrestler. Oh, can you, like show me like this?" And I'm like, "I don't do that." Like you don't like no, I got like 3 takedowns, and I don't think I've landed one in like 10 years. So I'm just gonna
Yeah,
wrestle on the
that's
mat.
sort yeah, that sort of brings me to my next point here. This was like I said earlier, kind of like one of the very interesting points about you is that, you know, you don't do a lot of a lot of standing position. And in the world of catch wrestling, in the world of wrestling, the idea of guard pulling or butt scooting is looked down upon heavily. Um, but I think one of the first thing ever I saw you kind of post was about, hey, if he pulls guard, if he sets to his butt, that's great for us. That's awesome. He just did most of the work for us. Which was giving us top position right off the bat. And I never really thought about it like that. But it makes a ton of sense. On the other side of the coin, um, you are not opposed to pulling bottom position yourself in a grappling match, and that's very interesting. I don't know anyone else in the world of catch wrestling who does that. And essentially, what you're doing is you're doing the catch wrestling version of pulling guard. I don't know if you necessarily agree with that or not, but that's essentially what you're doing. You're a catch wrestling ref. It's pulling refs basically. But the thing about it, at least from what I've seen with you, is you don't pull rear referee's position. You basically go to try to get to a bottom head on or a bottom kind of front headlocky kind of position and work from there. And this kind of this kind of goes back to the sort of positional hierarchy, um, or I guess you could call it a loose positional hierarchy within the world of catch wrestling and the world of the referee's position, and that's if you're going to pull all fours, you want to start head on. You want to be facing your opponent. You are very big on not letting people get behind you, and that's something that kind of mirrors a lot of jiu-jitsu guys too. Is jiu-jitsu guys are always trying to get behind people, get to their backs, and you're very much the same way. When did you start doing this? Because this is probably the most sort of distinguishing kind of feature of your system, this to pull that bottom position or initiate bottom position just to get it to the mat. You know,
But the
and
yeah,
I haven't heard this talked about enough when it comes to you.
well, okay, so yeah, so like before I met Billy Wicks, the last place I was working out wrestling was Anderson University in South Carolina. They used to be a D2 program. I don't even think they have a program now. So kind of like he did, he worked out at McAllister College in Minnesota, growing up as an amateur, and so I would be going there, and then so that was up into my 20s, man. And I mean, back then, yeah, when I coached high school, of course, we were big on getting a takedown and scoring your takedown points, and I kind of had that same mindset that Gable has talked about before. You should be able to score 3 points going into every match already. You should have a takedown and an escape. Boom. And that's a pretty good foundation to really build from and then build out from. But if you can say, man, we're going to have this no matter what, then I think that's good. So for me, a lot of it was injury wise, but the big thing really is when I met Billy Wicks. He told me we were in there one day, and he's like, I don't care if you can take me down. It's like, what? He goes, I'm not going to give you points for it because it doesn't matter until we hit the mat. He goes, but we hit the mat. You bet your ass I'm going to stretch you out, you know. And it, I really think for maybe I don't know how long. It was a while that I thought like, yeah, you're wrong on that. And then the more and more I saw, like, wow, it's actually Gene. I mean, he's not. Like, I mean, he's backing up what he told me. And, like, you know, uh, because I was like, well, what if I take you down straight to a pin? He goes, then my bottom wrestling sucks. My mat wrestling sucks. He goes, because if you're taking me down, now we're mat wrestling. It didn't have anything to do with the takedown. You took me down, but if I take you, he goes, somebody takes you down directly into a pin, damn. He goes, you know, he's like, that's on your mat wrestling at that point. You should have, I do like the old saying, going back to Gable again, he shoots, I score. Uh, and I think that, if you even go back and look at, like, and there's even evidence still on YouTube of some of the old college matches back in, like, the early 1900s. Yeah, takedowns are important. We want to win the takedown, so I don't want that to be misunderstood. I want my athletes to win the takedown, but I don't. To me, it's not like, oh God, we got took down. We lost the takedown. I don't really care what happens next, as long as they get your hand raised in the end, whether you hook the guy or pin the guy. Cool, and so with him, we were so much in, and we would start a lot of our practices, like, so even when we were sparring, one of the things that he hated was, I've got all these old, like, classes he would shoot, on his camera. They're on DVD, and you can hear him going, "Don't start on your knees facing each other," like a lot of grappling schools, jiu-jitsu schools, guys will start on their knees facing each other, touch hands, and then kind of start rolling. He's like, if you're gonna start down, start one man down, one man behind. At least look like wrestlers, that kind of thing. So yeah, so it got to the point where that I realized pretty quick that um, that the majority of the things that we do in catch wrestling are on the mat. But at least in what he did, what he was taught, and then that kind of lined up too with when I was introduced to Dick Cardinal in conversation with him. Um, there was an article I posted recently with Henry Collins that, the writer had said the person out of, like, what was it, an hour long match or a 2 hour long match, he personally spent 5 minutes behind them, which was a short amount of time for that long of a match. And that is one of our big things. I want to always get behind you. I want to be 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 behind you. And I don't want you to be behind me. So even we still see a resemblance of that in American folk style in our scholastic wrestling. We see guys, you'll see a guy, hit a snap down, go behind, snap down, go behind, snap down, go behind, and we wrestle to get behind the guy, to turn the guy, to pin the guy, break the guy down, right? The position in itself. So for me, yeah, one day Pop said to me, just walk out there and shoot. I don't care if you get the takedown or not. Because he'd watch me sparring, or he'd even with other guys. He said the same thing. Like, damn, y'all are killing me. Y'all been wrestling now for like 2.5 minutes, and you're both still standing there looking at each other. Or you've been standing, or then it'd be like, you've been wrestling for 30 seconds, and nobody's on the mat yet. I didn't come to watch a dance recital. I came to watch some wrestling. Now get down there and wrestle. He'd be like, let's get the music playing. Let's go. Get down there. Let's go. Let's wrestle. And to him, and I guess that's how Henry was and those guys were. We're going to get down and we're going to wrestle it and find out on the mat who's gonna win here. So over time, historically, we see that starting to leave wrestling more and more and more and more as it becomes more of an upright game. You look at Olympic wrestling now. I'm not that I don't still love to watch it, but I complain about it a lot. Because I think in freestyle they have absolutely gutted. They've taken a large chunk of wrestling and just thrown it away. Like, we don't need mat wrestling anymore. So if you're on bottom, just the referee will come and help you. Well,
yeah, well, it's not that
I don't
they
like that.
even took it away. It's that they bastardized it. It's unrecognizable. It's this weird, like, inbred, like, fetal alcohol syndrome mat wrestling kind of thing going on. Like, I don't know what the hell it is.
Like, I understood in Greco guys will sprawl out on bottom, right? They'll not to get. I get that, but then I started watching. I had a guy come to me a few years ago, and he'd been, around the world wrestling and stuff, and came in and first time he came in to train with me, got on the mat, one of my guys, and he was on bottom, and he just bellies out and sticks his arms out like, you can't turn me. And I was like, do you know what we do here? And before I even finished the sentence, his head, he's getting cross faced and ran across his damn chin, got introduced to his shoulder, and he gets run over. And I was like, you can't do that here. Like, you have to fight out of that position. But going back to what you mentioned too, one of the things that really is kind of one of my little other pet peeves that drives me crazy. I see it on social media all the time, and I see these guys because they got one, like, like from I can tell there's a difference between the American style and the English style. The British wrestlers, in my opinion, spend a lot more time on their feet. Their catch wrestling influence spends a lot more time on their feet. They're doing these saltos and suplexes and doing all these other things, and that's fine. I mean, one of the things that drives me crazy is when I see guys on the internet saying, catch guys saying, he jump guard, he's butt scooting. Well, my thing is like, again, it goes back to do something about it if you don't like it.
Yes.
Sometimes I think it's an excuse. It's like, hey, I'm going to publicly shame this person because they jump guard. But in truth is, I can't do crap with it, so that's why I'm publicly shaming them because I don't know what to do now. Because honestly, if somebody said, like, man, this guy's going to let this man, he's going to let me start with a double wrist lock on him. What's this crap? I'm like, dude, why are you crying about that? Like, because you're not having to spend that much energy. If a guy wants to jump guard, fine. I don't have to spend that energy taking him down. And this is where I wanted to go anyway. And I'd ask any catch wrestler, how many times have you seen somebody pin standing on their feet? And can you pin somebody that's standing up? I've never seen it. They got to be on the mat. I think they got to be on their back, and hooking somebody, submitting somebody. As we all know, I don't care the discipline, jiu-jitsu, catch, whatever. There's submission standing up is really difficult. Um, you really got to be a lot better, I think, than the guy you're going against to submit him standing. Uh, it's just so easy to. It's easy to counter. It's hard to get into. Um, if you go to guillotine choke somebody, if they're taller than you, you've got to get their head down to get to it, right? So whether you climb up them somehow or get them to bend over or get them to get in position for it, in like for me, yes, you can dive down for an ankle with a leg dive and go for a toe hold, that kind of thing. But I don't think I've ever done a toe hold with somebody standing upright. If they had both feet on the mat, I didn't submit them. Maybe a knee bar or something. It's not a toe hold, but you know, so I really think that it's overlooked. I think that in the modern time, we've kind of conditioned ourselves to think this is how it has to be done because this is what I see on TV, or this is what I was taught growing up, or this is how it was. I mean, from what do you call it? I guess like cadets, like little kid wrestling to middle school, your high school system, your collegiate system, and even with jujitsu, we saw we saw things like I think like a lot of guys for me, one of the things that really turned me on more and more to catch was I had already started doing it, but was actually like a lot of guys will say is watching Kazushi Sakuraba fight in the Pride events.
He had a great, he had a great rest.
And the thing is, I watched with him was that I was like, he's not doing a whole lot of stuff and winning matches against some really good opponents. Like if you go back and watch, it's like he's really not doing a lot of things. It's not like he's doing like a 10,000 submission chain on people. There's some times where he's flowing and he's making people look bad, but that's not those high level. That's not like one of the Gracies or. And I think it was his fight with Kevin Randleman that really impressed me because I saw Kevin Randleman in person in Birmingham, Alabama, and I had nightmares for like 3.5 weeks after that. Like, yeah, he was an impressive, intimidating dude. I watched him fight Boss Root and was about 20 feet away from the fight. It was a really fun fight to watch. And yeah, so I think for me, like I said, it was one of the other things too is the guys that Billy would partner me with. So like one of the guys that he loved to pair me with was a guy named Chris Rogers, who is it was like maybe a little bit shorter than me, and I think at the time back then probably about 250, and I was probably like 130 when I met Pops, or 140. So he'd be like, all right, you John, you go with Chris. And he told me, he said, if you can get off bottom with him, you can get off bottom with anybody. You
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
he goes, so the first time I was on bottom with Chris, I got mauled. And then the second couple thousand times I got mauled. And then about up to about a million times, I was probably still getting mauled a lot on bottom there. And I mean, really, man, I mean, guys, my guys, I asked all the time, like, I remember guys like even Matt sometimes like, I was like, get my ass kicked. He used to get my ass kicked all the time. Like, I mean, he was just there and toy with me and destroy me. Like, it was like, okay, so I figured out real quick, like, I had to change gears a little bit with a guy like Chris. I had to be careful and rough with him because he's going to wear you down too, man. He's so much larger and you're carrying some of that weight, regardless of it's a better situation than some positions you could be in. Um, he would, yeah, he didn't have to worry about throwing legs in. He wasn't a leg guy, but he would just crush you. He could just get down and crush you and grind on you and cross face you and drop his shin and knees on your ankle and use his elbows and just beat the crap out of you on the bottom. And then, you know, then you had other guys in the gym that were good wrestlers already coming in. You had guys that were good submission guys, good martial arts guys. So, it would change it up and it put somebody else like, on me, and either, like they basically could rip out submissions on you. So you had to get pretty wise real quick. That, if I get placed here, uh, I gotta, if I'm gonna get out wrestled and caught in this position, then I'm gonna have to get good here, or I'm gonna lose a lot. It's like, it,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't think, and the weird thing, I'll just say this real quick, now I'll shut up. But I don't think it's like, I think it's unique, and I think it's not maybe unique in the sense that I think it's unusual, not as common as a lot of things as we see more guys, you know, like. I mean, I watch guys. I mean, they just break their faces on each other trying to get a takedown, like two battering rams. It's like, I'm gonna ram you, I'm gonna ram you. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get a takedown, and I'm like, the hell with that, man. I would have pinned the guy. So like, let's just get down here. I don't need to get any uglier or get beat up. But there's wrestlers in the folk style in collegiate in recent years that were in modern times that were good on the mat. Like, Gene Mills comes to mind. I think I heard Gene Mills in an interview say he didn't score a takedown his senior year in high school. I think I
Huh.
heard him say that. Now he might have been joking, but basically, do you know who Gene Mills is? Are you familiar with him?
You tip. I think you tipped him. You tipped me off to him about a week or so ago.
Yeah, he you can look him up on YouTube. He's quite comical too in his coaching, but that guy was a terror on the mat. Like, guys would jump on him and he'd just start laughing like, ha ha, and he'd hit some like crazy ass Peterson roll and then cradle them, and they're like, oh my god, I'm getting pinned. And I don't think it's any different than like, you look at Askren, and I know you know who that is. I mean, that's um, you know, I mean, people are like, oh man, his style is so new and so different. I'm like, no, it's not. He's leg passing everybody. Like, what? I'm like, he's hitting all these leg passes on people. And it was just what they started calling funk style, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it might have been new to him, but it was not new. Now, he might have, like, I'm not saying he didn't build onto his own things and do some stuff, whatever. But yeah, the leg passing had been part of mat wrestling. And I remember Pops telling me, oh, you get your single leg reach over, grab his ankle, throw it over. Oh, cool.
Wow. Wow, that old.
So, oh yeah, it's been
Wow.
around.
Know that.
Yeah. Whoa. Sorry, I lost you there. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. No worries. All right. So moving into my kind of final topic here, and then we'll go into a rapid fire kind of question round for you. But just kind of clarify for our listeners. I should have clarified this up front. Another kind of a vocab word, but when John says the word, a lot of times he's referring to the term submission. That's kind of is that like an old American term for submission? Is hook?
Yeah, yeah, that's where we came up with the
Okay.
term, hook wrestling, which means hooking. It was the submission side of catch wrestling. Remember that catch as catch can in the early 20th century, there was amateur and there was pro. That was it. So for guys like Billy Wicks and Dick Cardinal, they were coming from a wrestling background, and instead of seeking out a coach to teach them catch, the difference in that time was the guys in the athletic shows sought them out to hire them to work in the carnivals, and when they brought them in, they'd teach them catch. And so,
Gotcha.
which was the pro style, which then they'd be hooking. And so basically, when they would use the term like, so the term, the definition, sometimes we have to decide on what the definition means, right? In these words, because you can talk past each other a lot of times and not. But some of the old timers considered shooter and hooker the same thing, which meant
Okay.
like a legitimate wrestler, catch wrestler, uh, that could do. To me, a shooter was somebody like the way Billy Wicks explained it to me. A shooter was somebody who competitively wrestled. A hooker was somebody that could blow out your knee, tear up your shoulder, break your arm, could hurt you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So so John's system, American hook wrestling, essentially means sort of American submission wrestling. But so going into my final question here, um, my my question basically revolves around the idea of submitting someone from the bottom referee's position. This is something I've really uh, gotten better at since I've started learning from you. In folk style and bottom position, you've got escapes and reversals, and in the world of jiu-jitsu, turtle position, you've got basically what are called reguards, where they're rolling back into a guard position, and then you've got a couple reversals from there that they like. Um, and that's about it. They've got a couple submissions from there themselves, but generally, most of the time, when you watch your average jiu-jitsu practitioner, they're gonna go to stop a guard pass from happening or to escape. Uh, and look to roll, kind of Granby roll back into a position where their legs are in between them and their opponents. But you know, the refs being sort of our guard, the refs being the catch wrestlers, quote unquote, guard. You want to be able to not only escape, reverse, but also submit from that position. Just the same as if you're in jiu-jitsu, from your guard, you want to be able to get back up to your feet. You want to be able to sweep and back tape, and you want to be able to submit. And the idea of submitting from bottom referee's position is one of those things that you got to be able to do if you want your bottom position to work, as one functional unit. Not only defend submissions, but also attack from submissions from there as well. Because there are going to be times when you're not going to be able to escape against someone, or you're not going to be able to reverse against someone, and your only option is going to be to submit. Now you can use that submission attempt to sort of parlay it into a reversal or parlay it into an escape. Um, you're going for maybe a Kimura double wrist lock, and the guy feels the pain, he doesn't want it, so he releases the pressure on you, and then you escape, you stand up, or maybe you hit a switch, something like that. Can you kind of just kind of talk about um, just submitting and applying submissions and hooks from bottom refs or bottom head-on position, and sort of maybe some that work best for you, or some that just work very well in general.
I do a lot of double wrist lock hunting on bottom. When I'm in referee position, um, if your arms come in between my hips, between into my knees and between my elbows, I am absolutely looking for double wrist lock. And then that double wrist lock, when I get it, my first thought of it is like get positioned to submit you. So then that's when we start thinking about the Charlie Carr side ride. That's when I start thinking about tripoding up and hitting you with a roll. That's when I start thinking about sitting out, going to a switch with it, or even hitting a stand up and then into a throw to bring you back down and staying on it. I think that's one thing we do a little bit differently too, where I don't get a double wrist lock and go, okay, I got it, and then I'm going to switch over to an armbar. I get the double wrist lock and I'm going to wrestle you until I get position and get the angle to basically crank your shoulder out. So if I can hook your leg, if I grapevine it and get it there, that's great. If not, I'll sit out and I'll stay on it. If I need to roll you with it, I'll stay on it, and I'll follow that around. Because remember, it's a wrestling hold. When you look in the old books, it's a wrestling hold. And my coach used to say to me, it's a wrestling hold. He's like, do you know the difference between a wrestling hold and a submission hold? Well, I thought I did, but until he brought it up, I really didn't. And he was like, a wrestling hold is both. You can control the person and submit them with it. And I said, well, can't you do that with any hold? He said, jump into an armbar and control me. Because you're not going to without getting, because you're not gonna take it and wrestle with it, like where you can get it from, use it for your takedowns, your throws, and stuff like that. And then I started seeing what he was saying. It wasn't as versatile. And the same way we'll have the toe hold. A lot of times you use a toe hold obviously for submission on bottom. A lot of times I'm going for a toe hold to use as a reversal to get out of legs. So we said the other day, it's a fakey toe hold. It's a fakey toe hold to a rock and roll, to a 720, big twist. No, so. Yeah, so we're going in there though, and again that toe hold, and as soon as I grab that toe hold on bottom, I snatch it up here, I get it in tight, my body's covered. I'm thinking like, do I have the leverage and proper? You can feel it. It's that feel process. Do I feel like I can crank him out and get him here, or do I need to use it to turn him and wrestle out? So the double wrist lock, toe hold, which when I say toe hold, as that means about anything I can do to your leg when I grab your foot. But as the term implies, it does mean I'm starting at the top of covering the top of your feet, your toes. I'm not trying to, you're not doing a lock on the toe, but that's where your grip is to control, to get the end of the foot for leverage of controlling the foot and to turn the knee, turn the hip, turn the ankle. It's essentially a toe hold is essentially a heel hook. It's just using your hands, and from every position, So let's see what else I can do down there. You go into some straight like reverse arms. I think like catch community calls like Fujiwara armbar. I just call it straight armbar off a double wrist lock. Then we talked about, you and I've talked recently about the actual wrist attack on a wrist lock. I can, you could go into basically, I can hit like, I can go from my side ride to a double wrist lock. Actually, I can take my side ride into a knee bar even, and then go from that to Achilles, locks or heel hooks or um, those kind of holds.
Okay, yeah. When I first started looking at the submission aspect of bottom refs, I knew there was the Kimura double wrist lock there. I knew that there was a like a rolling knee bar kind of thing. But yeah, there's definitely, once you start getting into it and knowing how to use the position, really be comfortable there, and especially if you're at the point where you want to let the guy put a leg in or put two legs in, then it can actually open up even more from a submission standpoint.
Well,
You know,
well,
um,
but you can go into like your reversals too. Like you can turn some types of cradles can go into submissions. Though it is, I will admit, it's hard to submit somebody with the cradle. Somebody that's really good, somebody that's just used to getting put in that or beat the submission. But the one thing about submission holds, to me, submissions, the way it was explained to me, submissions are your bullets. Your wrestling's the gun. And so people will go, well, they got to work together. That's true. But if I can only one to one, I'd rather have the gun. And I remember saying, because you can hit them with a gun, and he said, that's right. If you don't have any bullets, you can beat them with it. So now you're talking. Now we're talking more like an amateur wrestling type of scenario. But like, um, yeah, yeah, I think that I think that I think you just say getting in the things that you saw, like tucking under fishing, guys rolling up through knee bars, getting leg locks, doing these leg exchanges, and all this. The thing is, if you're in the position, and I'll go back to this again and again, emphasize it enough. If you can't get off bottom, if you can't defend submissions, when I mean get off bottom, if you can't hit an escape and you can't reverse your opponent, and you can't defend from there, well, if you start rolling people, they're going to figure out your tricks. So, like, how many times you think you can just keep catching the guy in the same damn hole? You're not. And that's why sometimes, like one of my guys said that it kind of like magic, because once somebody's seen it, it gets a little harder and harder to put them in it usually. And I know like when I used to roll, like he asked Matt Tran, when we used to roll constantly, it got to be where he just like basically like, I'm not even going to let my feet come out onto the mat with me. I'm just going to keep them off to the side and wrestle you because I'm tired of you grabbing them. So then I'm like, well, I got a surprise for you. Today I got a new idea. We're going to go with the headlock instead. I gotcha. But damn, that got really hard. And so thankfully I didn't have to wrestle him anymore. I started getting too old, so I'll let him remain with all his losses. And yeah. So
awesome. Awesome. All right, coach. So last little bit here, I want to do kind of rapid fire round, and it's gonna basically what the context of this is I'm gonna shoot you questions that you'll often hear, jiu-jitsu players kind of throw out
okay.
without too much thought or without too much knowledge when it comes to playing the referee's position or when it comes to playing the turtle position. And you got some pretty zippy one-liners or two-liners, so maybe you can get some nice one or two-liners in there for it. So
All right.
here we go. So first one, but I can't see my opponent from bottom refs.
Your eyes will deceive you. Your eyes will deceive you. Uh, yeah, you need to be wrestling. You need to understand feel and understand the human body. It's not like he can grow a third arm or a third leg on your ass. Like, oh, I'm shocked. He's got an arm on this side. I mean, it's not calculus. This isn't calculus. It really isn't. It's just doing it and doing it and doing it. That's all it is. So, but that is it. But that is the reason why I do like to attack people from behind. I like to wrestle from behind for A, to carry my weight. B, they can't see me. That is something you do have to keep in mind. So, I think it's fair.
Okay.
I wanted to give some
If
answers
he
that are just
gets
like shut up, go away.
yeah, I mean, if you need to default to that, that's fine. But we would like to something a little bit with a little more substance than
Yeah,
that. So,
yeah,
but
yeah,
if
yeah.
you need to use that,
That's all right.
feel free. Okay, next one. If he gets if he gets to top refs on me, he will take my back.
Possibly. So what? He's still got to finish you. He's still got to beat you. Uh, if, yeah, actually, I mean, if you not see some of these guys that take, like they'll with a lot of guys that throw in legs, they throw them in poorly. You can easily reverse them. Uh, you know, throwing legs on a good wrestler who, if some good leg guys, and I know you got them out there in Iowa, they will put you on your butt quick. Like, oh, big mistake. Uh, but yeah, uh, if you're gonna try throwing legs, you're gonna have to be able to block. You're gonna have to be able to prevent, escape, reverse. You're going to have to be able to use it as an offensive tool to you. Take the position they think's an advantage to them and turn the tables on them and make it a disadvantage to them. You know the old saying, "What we don't know kills us." That's BS. What we don't know doesn't kill or hurt us. That's BS. What we don't know will get our ass killed. It's the unknown that can mess us up.
Okay. If he
Surprise!
takes my
I
back,
got 10 fingers.
if he takes but back, he will choke me immediately.
You got to take 3 laps. For one, not being able to stop the Captain Obvious average McDojo strip mall grappler in the United States. Of course, he's going to try to choke you. Hey, if you're in a street fight and he jumps on your back, he's going to try to hit you. You know, it's like the old saying from it's like Back to the Future. Hello, McFly. It's like, oh, I got in a fight and he tried to hit me in the face. No shit, he tried to hit you in the face. Like, that's kind of how those things go. Of course, he's going to try to choke you. So my response is what are you going to do about it? You know, are you going to be prepared for it? I hope so. I mean, and that's what it is, being prepared. You know, um, they jump guard. Wait till I shin right on, in guard position, and then they'll go, damn, didn't see that coming. Like, what I'm talking about? They're going to be like, oh, yeah. I'm like, now what? Well, most jiu-jitsu guys be like, I got to get out of that. Yeah, don't get in it. So.
Okay. All right, next one. Turtle isn't a position, it's a transition.
Agreed and disagreed. It can be extremely offensive and effective, but I think I want to be top position. I'm just willing to start there to get top position. So I think that's the difference, probably. I mean, in my jiu-jitsu instructor, Jacare was always saying being on top is better, even in jiu-jitsu. He's like, be on top if you can be on top. He would encourage that. So I remember when I was doing jiu-jitsu, that was my favorite thing was to, if I was in guard, my favorite move from the old school closed guard was to try to take your back. Was basically arm drag, try to climb up you and get behind you. Throw my legs and get up around your side and then climb onto your back and all that good stuff. So yeah, I think that it can be a position. I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think there's an absolute there, but I do think that you got to be able to wrestle from there, and you got to be able to win fights from that position, whether it's getting up, whether it's going back to a stand up, whether you're sitting a switch and getting behind them, or whether it's hooking them. So yeah.
Okay, next one. You should never turn your back to your opponent.
Never turn your back to your opponent. You should try to avoid it as much as possible. But when somebody comes behind you, because in reality is when you say you should never turn your back. Sorry, somebody's going to get behind you at some point. It's like, now what are you going to do? Oh, well, damn, he's behind me. I give up. Fight's over. He wins. Yeah, I hope that's not anybody's mindset. Surely it's not. You got to, so yeah, you should never turn your back to your opponent. I would tend to agree with that. It's not ideal, but there's going to be times when, even if you're a striker, you trip. You turn your back to your opponent. You're going to just go, okay, well, I'm done. No, you got to be able to fight from that situation. You got to win. Like I said, you got to be able to win that moment. Or at least survive the damn moment long enough to get back to a good situation and position for yourself. Okay. You can only I only give them one lap on that one because I tend to agree with that philosophy for the most part.
Okay. Okay, next one. The guard is superior to turtle or refs because with the guard, you get to use your legs against your opponent.
Give me your feet. Put your legs in front of me and tell me how great it is. Seriously, I mean, I've had a lot of guys say that. I got a message from one of my guys today who's talking about rolling with black belts. Let's just say all over the Sunshine State that were 50 pounds larger than him, and they can't do jack with him. So they're giving him their feet. Yeah, I actually enjoy that. If I got your legs, you're not going to stand your ass up either. So when your mom calls you home for dinner, I'm going to say, not right now. I'll let him come home later. Right now, and he's going to hang. No, he's going to hang out with me. And actually, if he's in my house, I'm going to get him to mow my yard because damn, I hate cutting grass. So yeah, dude. No, that don't even make any sense. Like I thought you were going to say like, oh, I can relax here more and I don't have to use much energy. I'm like, okay, I can see that. But yeah, if I put my legs in front of you, I can keep you from beating me up. No, 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 no. You need your legs, man. I mean, you know, and it's only as good as it work. You know, it's only going to be as good as the guy you're using that against. I mean, um, you know, like if I was trying to triangle choke somebody, I'd tell them you should feel pretty confident that you're not in a lot of trouble. Like it's not something I'm good at. You know. So, but grabbing your foot and making you scream, I'm pretty good at that. So,
Okay. Okay. Next one, and this one is in regards to uh, guard pulling, or I guess in our case, pulling refs position, just pulling bottom position in general. Uh, I would rather die. I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
not me. I'd rather live on my knees because here's the damn truth, man. Here's the thing. Death is pretty damn final. It seems pretty absolute. Like, I mean, I don't. I mean, when you're dead, it's like the old saying, like, I'd rather be dead than red. Not me. I'd rather be a communist. Shit. I'll eat some government cheese while your ass is decaying in the ground. And you know what? In 2 years, I might be free again. You never know. So in that situation, I might be on my knees for a little bit, but I might live again. I might be on my feet again someday. So death is final. I think that's a quitter's. That's like you're a quitter. That's a damn quitter's motto. Under the down on my feet to live on my knees. Oh, cool. I bet the cemetery's full of guys like that. So yeah. but I like the zest. I like the zeal. I like the passion of it. So I do respect that in all seriousness. But yeah.
Fair.
No,
Fair.
death is a scary ass thing, I think. So yeah.
Fair. All right, Coach. I don't think we can top that. We'll end it on the government cheese joke there. So
I'm catching moths in our sunroom, beat my kids and my cats to it. So it's flying around driving me crazy. But yeah, yeah. So that's about I don't know. So hopefully there's which most of those are being a little bit sarcastic and just having fun with. But yeah, I think the last one's one we could debate for a long time. And I do like the whole you never should turn your back on your opponent. I mean, I tend to usually agree with that. Like, except for the fact that I say, now what? I mean, martial art instructors always hate, but then what if he does this? But in truth, that is what reality is. What if he does this? Um,
sure.
that is, but it is annoying when somebody just asks, like, but then what? But now what? But then if he does this or what? Yes, but there should be no questions that are off limits. There, I want to end on that. No questions are off limits. Well, some are. Well, no questions when it comes to combat. No questions in combat. Yeah, that's right.
All right, Coach. Thank you very much for your time, man. It's really great. I hope this was informative for any jiu-jitsu people that are watching, maybe even some catch wrestlers too. Um, I honestly on this topic, halfway through I realized like, man, I was just trying to do a general overview of this, but man, I don't even feel like I did a general overview of the bottom position. It's really such a big topic, and I really think it deserves more coverage. As catch wrestlers, we are pretty much the ones flying that flag of that style of bottom position, and I think there's just so much merit in it. Catch wrestling is known, for people outside of catch wrestling, we're known for our, if they have some respect for us, we're known for our, top game, and a lot of times we're known for our standing game, our our top game is very heavy and grinding. We have sort of these sort of unorthodox submissions, and on the feet we're good at the takedowns with respect to submissions, which are a couple things that jiu-jitsu players like to add to their game. But as far as the bottom position goes, I feel like it's just one of those things that we don't even cover that much. There's not a lot of technique videos out there on this topic, and player does sort of encounter this topic, they're sort of immediately turned off, like oh, they're going to get their back taken, they're going to get choked. It's looked down upon. It's looked down upon in the world of jiu-jitsu if they're looking at us at all, as just, oh, they're just scrambling, they're just using strength and power, they're just kind of hoping that they don't get choked. But it's really not like that at all. It honestly could not be farther from the truth. And nowadays in the world of jiu-jitsu, with leg locks getting so hot, we're seeing the downside of the guard. That like, oh, the guard, it's the ultimate safety position, but if you leave your feet hanging out there, you're gonna get leg locked. The same as if you're playing refs, you leave your neck out there, you're gonna get choked. And so you really got to understand how to play the system as a whole. And I wish there was more sort of resources I could lead people to at the end of this video. Like, go here, look at all this stuff here. Go here, look at all this stuff here. But all I can really say is just, if you're interested in learning how to get your bottom refs, get your turtle, get your all fours game up and running, check out John's stuff. It's American Hook Wrestling. You can contact him on Facebook if you want to. You can contact me, and we can direct you in the way we can send you in the direction of certain resources that can help you get this done. And I'll say this, Coach. There's a couple guys in the world of jiu-jitsu right now. There's this Estonian guy named Prit Mikkelsen and his friend Wim Deputer, and essentially, they are kind of leading the charge in the world of jiu-jitsu in this respect. They're big time turtle players, and they're getting some coverage. They're putting DVDs out on the world's largest jiu-jitsu technique DVD website, BJJ Fanatics. And so word is getting out, and if you watch their stuff, it's very good. It is more jiu-jitsu kind of oriented, but people are starting to catch on to this. And as big of a sort of impact that leg locks had on the world of jiu-jitsu, this could be me just sort of pipe dreaming or just kind of exaggerating, but I think that people understanding this position in all of facets has the ability to really overturn kind of the modern grappling scene, the modern grappling strategy. I think it's just kind of a matter of just kind of getting the word out, getting the technique out there, and ultimately just trying to make people see what we see in this regard. And it's no small task, because people takes a long time to learn guard, and then starting back over, it takes a long time to learn a completely new bottom position. So it's kind of hard to follow people. There's a lot to learn, then when you take standing and top position, that's more to learn. So there's just a lot to learn. It is hard to help all people, but I really want to encourage people to really try to test this aspect of their game, because there's just so much technical real estate that I had, and it's improved my game dramatically. It's improved, a couple other of my training partners' games dramatically, just from a little dose of it. So, Coach, I'll end on that. If you have any last words, I'll let you have them.
Just one thing, it crossed my mind. I'll say this real quick, is that you're talking about with jujitsu. I mean, when I was doing jiu-jitsu, it was gi, and it's like, hey, do we ever not wear the gi? Oh, no, you're not good enough yet. And now I know there's lots of different schools that some don't use the gi at all, at least not the jacket, right? And then I can remember in the late 90s, early 2000s going, hey, I don't like full mount position. Like, you're better off to the side. And they're like, no, that's not true. And now you start seeing a lot more guys from the side. And then it was the old saying was never give up your back. But then you started seeing a lot more of that in MMA. You start seeing guys who are willing to turn over a lot of times, you know. So the one thing I'll say this in the end, and I'll think about this goes to the wrestling. The two wrestlers face each other, you know, let's just say the majority of the time without a double, without getting too far into the rabbit hole here with it. Two guys face each other. One's going to win the takedown. Someone's going to hit the takedown. So I think my thinking has always been like, if I don't win the takedown, then what am I going to do? Just give up? No. I mean, so while this guy might take, we have 1 hour to practice, he might spend 45 minutes on his takedown. I'll spend 10 minutes because I know that match is going to go to the ground regardless, whether I get him or he gets me. And then I got to figure out where to go from there. And I think that's the thing. Trying to win in situations that a lot of people look at as situations that you just don't ever get in. I think that you're going to be put in them. That's when people lose anything in life, matches or anything, it's because you're in a bad situation. And I'm not saying that you want to be in a bad situation. It's like you could lose all your money in your home and end up being homeless. You know, that's a bad situation. Do you give up and lose, or do you battle on from there? Are you going to withstand that storm and better yourself to get those things back, to regain them? So even when it comes to something like wrestling or fighting in general, MMA, I think of it in the terms of, you know, uh, we tend to lose, we tend to give up, we tend to, you know, you've seen it yourself, you've been there, we've all been there. Somebody throws hooks in, they flatten you out, oh, you're discouraged. If you're standing up striking and you're getting hit a lot, it gets discouraging. Uh, if you're getting hit with these, so you know, if the guy's on top, it's discouraging, or if you can't pass his guard, it's discouraging. And the thing of it is that's the reality of life. There's always going to be the situations we find ourselves in, and instead of being just so timid to to I think the way I was trying to explain it is I don't care if you take me down. I mean, I do, but I'm going to realize that uh, whoever wins the takedown, the match ain't going to be over. You know, it's not over again until I'm pinned or submitted. So it's the same thing would be in uh, jujitsu. Like, let's say, what's the worst? You know, I think being like mounted. Let's say, let's just go old days back in the '90s, so that I can relate a little bit to the jujitsu the way it was then or thinking. But what's the worst thing you can do? I remember a professor being like, "Oh, the worst thing is you can be mounted, or they have your back." And I remember going, "Well, man, I'm going to learn how to get out of mount. Who cares if I can do 2,000 submissions? Who cares if I know 75 throws? My ass is not going to get mounted. I'm getting out of that." And so when I think we get beat in situations like when we're on bottom, when we're on our back, when we're bellied out, when we're caught in a hold. We got to learn not to lose in the situations where people do lose. And I know that sounds crazy because you're like, well, so yeah, what I'm saying is a bad position or getting caught in submission is how we get beat. Then focus on how not to get submitted right there. How do we stop this so we don't get beat? So instead of winning, I avoid on like how not to get beat, how to survive, and to continue to give yourself a chance to win the fight. So that's all I got to say, man. Well, it's not all I got to
Great.
say. I got a lot to say, but we'll just end me there. We'll just end me there. So,
Okay.
all right, man.
All right. Hey, thank you so much, Coach. I appreciate your time. Great talk. And yeah, just best to you and your family out there.
You too, Anthony. Take care, man.
Take care.